Hi, Heather Baker here, and this is my post-mortem video for the Cooperate application. Going through my time management this week, my biggest takeaway was definitely the underestimation of the time that would be spent on this project. It did become much more involved than I initially anticipated. Starting on Monday, you can see 11 hours, most of that spent in the simulator environment and Xcode, working out the bugs and implementing the past chores view controller. Going to Tuesday, you can see another 11 hours spent working on the project. Did end up postponing my work for the week till later in the week to be able to focus on this project. So all of the time that you do see here was spent working on the Cooperate application. On Wednesday, again, 11 hours logged in software development. There was some time in utilities. And then going to today, you can see a lot of rollover time from yesterday evening where I stayed up working out the bugs that were found in the syncing view controllers once the past chores view controller was implemented, allowing me to be able to see those bugs during testing. Looking back on my time this month at the 80 hours that were spent here in Xcode and the 11 hours there in the simulator, it's very obvious to me that I underestimated the time that would be spent on this application. It was much more involved than I initially anticipated. However, I am very happy with the time spent. I learned a lot, and I definitely became more familiar with the development process from the beginning to the release of an application. The majority of my time spent debugging this week was on these two functions that receive data from the multi-peer connectivity connection and the functions that they call. After updating the single device functionality for the parent, I ended up needing to revert some of my code and retrieve it from my Git repository to be able to get back on track. After that was done, I did find an elegant solution. However, there were many additional hours debugging and updating it to the new solution. At first opening the Cooperate application, the user is presented with the choice to log in as either a parent or child. Once the parent logs in, they're first prompted to create themselves a 4-digit PIN. Once the PIN is created, they'll be navigated to their My Children view controller, which informs them for affordance to get started by tapping New Child. From there, the user will create a new child, and the child will then be seen within the table view. By tapping on a child, the user is brought to the child detail view controller, and if no chores are currently assigned to the child, the user will see some affordance informing them to tap the plus icon to create a new chore for their child. During the creation of a chore, the user is required to put in the title, the payout, and the estimated minutes. The details can be left blank, so they're prompted to go to the next. The child user that they came from will automatically be selected within the UI picker. However, they are able to change that selection. If select child is selected, the chore will be put into the past chores view controller for them to assign to a child later on. The parent can choose if the chore is mandatory or optional and select a priority for the chore. Upon saving the chore, the user is informed that the new chore has been saved and then segued back to where they can see all of their children and the chores that have been assigned. Since this chore was not saved to a child, the user can navigate to the past chores and view the past chores, selecting a chore to see the details where they can delete or edit the chore. Upon editing, the user is able to change any of the values of the chore, as well as assign it to a child. The user is then prompted to confirm that they do want to save the changes, and then segued back where they can see that the chore has been assigned to their child. Now by tapping on the child, the user can see all of the chores that have been assigned to a child. By tapping on an assigned chore, the parent user can cancel the chore, which will place the chore into the past chores for reassignment. They're able to edit the chore, which will allow them to change any details, just as tapping on a chore in the past chores view controller would. And they're able to approve the chore. If the approve button is tapped by a parent user, the user is prompted to confirm that they do want to mark the chore both complete and approved. Notified that the chore has been completed and approved, and segued back to where they can see the now approved chore. If a payout is selected, the user is prompted to confirm the payout and the amount of the payout to the child that they have selected, and the paid out chores will be removed and placed into the past chores view controller. In the past chores view controller, the parent is able to tap the sort button, which brings up a pop-up allowing them to sort by title, priority, payout, mandatory status, or estimated time. Once the child has been given chores, the parent user can log out and lock parent mode. Then navigating to the child selection screen, select the child, and the chores are there available. The child is able to sort the chores by priority, time, or payout. And once chores are selected, the child will be navigated to the chore detail view controller, presenting the information for the chore and allowing them to complete the chore and mark it ready for approval. Once the chore has been marked complete, they're segued back to view their chores and can now see that the sweeping has been completed, as well as the pending payout incremented. The child user is able to have the parent user unlock the application to access parent functionality by entering their PIN, or they can log out, allowing another child to log in. When the child syncs, they're prompted to connect with their parent's device. Once the connection begins, the activity indicator starts animating, offering affordance to the child that they are waiting on their parent to respond, while the parent inputs the PIN, and the child receives the verified PIN, and both users are segued to the syncing screen. When the child syncs their chores, it sends a sync request to the parent, allowing the parent to confirm the overwrite for any chores that have been paid out on the child's device. And once the chores are synced, any pending chores will be sent to the parents for approval. And when an approval is received, the table dynamically updates to show that there's no pending chores to display, and the earned amount increments. When the parent initiates syncing, they are also prompted to connect with the child, and a warning message will be given if two children or two parents do attempt to connect. And once the connection is accepted, the parent is prompted to enter the PIN for the child device. And once the PIN has been verified, both users are then segued to the syncing view controllers. If the parent selects to sync, they are prompted to confirm the sync and inform that will overwrite any chores that have been marked paid on the child device, and informing them that they can sync in the opposite fashion should they want to save any paid out chores from the device that the child is currently using. Once syncing is complete, the parent will see all of the pending chores that the child has been marked completed show up on their device and be informed that all of their chores have been sent to the child for syncing. Now that pending chores are available, the parent can go into approval mode, informing them that they need to swipe left to approve chores. And upon swiping left, they're able to approve, which dynamically updates the child on their own application. If the parent selects the Edit PIN button from the syncing screen, they're able to change theirs, the child's, or both PINs if desired. And by selecting a payout, the parent is prompted to confirm that they do want to make the payout the amount of the payout, which updates the earned amount on the parent device as well as on the child device. The parent also has the option to approve all to save time, which will approve all chores, and change the pending and earned amounts on both devices accordingly. Going over my time spent this week, the most time I spent was working on the sync view controllers after the implementation of the payout feature for the parent to be able to create a payout on a single device, which caused some minor changes in my core data structure, which caused major changes within the sync view controllers. Once the past chores view controller was implemented, there was also a number of small bugs revealed. Most of them were fixed very quickly, though prior to implementing the past chores view controller, I was not able to see them during testing and development. The adaptive layout was additionally time consuming. There were a few times that I had to go back quite a few steps due to making conflicting constraints, though I was able to work those all out within the matter of a couple of hours. The least time I spent this week was for the small updates for the user experience. After going through the extensive testing, I was able to notice things that could be added for affordance, such as changing the names of table view headers to inform the user that they needed to create either a child or a chore. The research I did this week was oriented towards updating the UI for app branding, and most of those features were able to be quickly researched and then implemented within a short period of time. The majority of my time consumption this week was towards updating the sync view controllers. I encountered many problems while I was changing those view controllers to deal with the chores being paid out on a single device and update dynamically were the chores to be synced again in the future. Because of the place in the application where these changes took place, it also took extensive amounts of time to debug because I would need to create a child, create chores, and get to the syncing process before I could even see if a small update had changed anything. The small updates for the sake of user experience mostly went incredibly quickly once I noticed that they should be implemented. For the most of them, it was a very quick search on Google and then back to implementation and done in just 5 to 15 minutes. The items that were successfully completed this week were the implementation of the past view controllers, along with the sorting popover to allow the parent to sort the past chores within the 5 different categories. The adaptive layout is also fully functional, allowing the application to be used on multiple devices and orientations, including iPhones and iPad. Additionally, there was extensive testing and debugging done this week. There were no milestone items that were left missed or incomplete throughout the project. Looking back, there are things that I would have done differently. Most of that comes back to more planning before implementation of features. Due to the large size of this application that I did not expect, which is by far the largest application that I've made to date, there was a lot of time spent going back and forth trying to wrap my head around the logic of the application, which now looking back, I believe could have been solved by sketching out the plans for my functions in pseudocode on a whiteboard or sketch paper prior to implementation. That would have allowed me to view the larger picture of things before spending my time implementing something that may or may not work. I did spend a little additional time this week creating graphic assets for affordance throughout the application, such as creating a different colored background for the children table view cells to differentiate them from the chores, as well as a different background for parent view controllers to differentiate for the user when a parent or a child is logged in. There was some code experimentation as well. Most of that was spent updating the branding for the user interface, learning how to access the background and text attributes of the alerts. There were a number of bugs that I discovered this week after implementing the past chores view controller, which revealed all the past chores that were saved and showing that there were some duplicates that were created during syncing, which was also causing problems with the syncing process once those duplicates were created. To fix that, I was able to implement a cleaning process, so to speak, of the saved data to prevent the user from creating duplicate chores that may cause problems later on. And while working on the syncing chores, there was numerous bugs. At first, I was encountering where chores would be duplicated or where a chore that was already saved as a duplicate on the parent device wouldn't update properly, which by going through my code line by line, I was able to overcome. When it comes to testing, I did the majority of the testing, though my 7-year-old daughter and my fiance did do some testing as well. And my fiance was able to give me some affordance feedback on the prompt alerts, letting me know what did and did not make sense to him. Looking back on this project, my biggest takeaway was my time spent. While I was able to implement the basic core features in the estimated time that I provided, the implementation of affordances and small details definitely took more time than I initially anticipated. I do feel that time was well spent. However, in the future, I'll definitely be taking those small affordances and changes into account before estimating my time or a payment for a project.